Hello, Contrarians, listeners, watchers, fans. Here we are with our first warm up in the patron takeover. The patrons have just invaded our main feed, and now almost every episode we have for the next 6 months or so is going to be a patron pick. And we're opening with The Mutations, a movie that I didn't even know existed. I think the same applies to Alex, but it features one of the so-called patron saints of the show. So that's good. And this is a patron pick from Dale Bridges, who we've brought up before on the show because he wrote a book I really liked. You'll hear more about that on the episode, as well as the usual. We'll do the Contrarians thing. The Mutations, and we'll discuss it on the episode. But it doesn't have a tomato meter score. It has an audience score, and that's rotten. So we went fresh. We're going to say really nice things about the Mutations in the episode. But before that, for lack of Rotten Tomatoes reviews, what we have is Letterboxd quotes, those reliable critics in the Letterboxd platform. And then we'll do trivia. And of course, we also have the Josh Gad Minute. Got a mix of positive to negative quotes here. And people in Letterboxd, they let their hair down when they do this thing. So let's start with somebody who could be one of us. Anthony gives the movie 2.5 stars and says, "Let's be real. I only watched this for Donald Pleasence."
That's fair.
Have you?
That's a lot of things.
Have you found yourself watching a movie just for Donald Pleasence before?
Well, I mean, we watched it for a pick, but Wake and Fright, my interest was heightened by that.
Yeah. It's more like, oh, he is in this movie that I'm watching already.
Pretty much the only reason I revisit Halloween 5 is him and Tina.
Similar thespians.
I seeked out Eye of the Devil because it's a movie with him and Sharon Tate, and I thought that was interesting, and it's pretty good. But at this point, a lot of my Donald Pleasence experience has come from what we've done here, and it's kind of, he's long since left us, but he's a lot more than Dr. Loomis.
But he's still Dr. Loomis. He's the Dr. Loomis.
Yes, you refer to him as Loomis. You don't ever really call him Donald Pleasence, but
yes,
he's a bit more than that even still.
All right. Well, coming up at some point, the summer of the Pleasence, where we will just delve into the rest of his filmography. Next,
A Pleasant Summer.
Oh my God, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Coming to Patreon. Next, Paul gives it 3 stars and says, "How I yearn for the 1970s, happier, more innocent times, when a prostitute only cost £2, I guess. It's an extra quid if you want her to say she loves you. And entry to a freak show was just 20p, 10p extra to see the lizard woman." We get it, Paul. You watched the movie.
Yes. Thank you for recounting important parts of the plot.
Yes. So the 1970s, happier, more innocent times. I mean, this is very much a 70s movie, and it doesn't disappoint. I mean, it has that 70s aesthetic, right? I think that you're more of an expert when it comes to that, as far as you've seen this type of movie from the 70s a lot more than I have. So it fits the mold, I guess. Would you say, if I say 70s horror movie starring Donald Pleasence, sci-fi horror movie, is this kind of like what comes to mind?
Yes, and there's some things that are kind of like staples of the time in the genre, like the credits being in like the green oozy type font, and I mean, the style obviously of the time. I mean, Loomis looks flossy and could be dressing like that in any decade, but yeah, it's what you can picture in your mind is kind of a lot of what you get here.
The British fashion too, those glasses. Who is this? Chad with 2 D's at the end. Chad 2BADD.
Chad Too Bad?
Chad Too Bad? Yeah, I guess so. Man, you're hip, man.
That's I
just sounded out.
I mean, I don't know if that's an intentional wrestling reference, but that's the Machine Gun Carl Anderson's alternate persona in Southpaw Championship Wrestling. So
Chad
who knows?
Bad.
Chad Too Bad. Yeah.
Well, this potential wrestling fan gives the movie 2 stars and says, "Fairly slow pace. I was struggling to stay awake. Upsides, freaks and boobs." He does sound like a wrestling fan.
Yeah, that's on the money.
He also says Donald Pleasence is less of a mad scientist and more of a laconic scientist. The ending, if you can hold out, is pretty rad.
Says Chad Too Bad.
Chad, too bad.
Pretty rad. I mean, he learned laconic the day that he wrote this review.
That's
what are you talking about? Loomis is a crazy scientist in this. That's what makes him so mad. Is he's so calm? Like one of the things about the movie was that he was written to be kind of like it's alive, but Pleasence was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm gonna do it my way, and it makes him more haunting. So Chad, too bad. If that is a Southpaw reference, I respect it, but I have to humbly disagree with your take on this.
Yes, but he is right about the boobs. They're there, all over the movie.
They're there. At no point was I like, hooray for boobs, woo, or anything like that.
It was more like, boobs. There they are.
That's another staple of the time period too.
Boobs, nudity, just in general.
Just like, here you go. Doesn't really mean anything, but here's just some boobs.
Hey, let's have this character shower, just for fun. Soupy Doopy gives it 2 stars and says, "Note, when Pleasant says, 'You may think you're normal, but you are all the product of mutation,' I about jumped out of my seat because I had heard that line a million times in Rob Zombie's song Rock and Roll in a Black Hole."
Nice.
You're familiar with Roberto Zombirelli's musical output, at least more than I.
Yeah, I was about to say I couldn't cite his discography, but I guess more than yourself. Yeah, he uses sound drops from horror movies in like a ton of his songs. So
the Mutations remake coming your way, courtesy of Rob Zombie.
Chad Too Bad and Soupy Doopy, you're really busting out the heavy hitters here.
All right, well, we're gonna close with the more, I guess, normally named Dario, who doesn't give a star rating, just a heart, and says, "The extended nature dog plant and fungus footage in lush Eastman color make this a great stoned watch. But then the creature stuff is actually gets really upsetting and scary. Perfect simulation of switching from indica to satin and getting the bad high." I mean, I was sober when I watched this. Have you had that experience of watching a movie where you're like high and it being wildly different, to where it makes you like? I think I've told this story way back when we did our Natural Born Killers episode about my friend who would just insist that that you could not understand Natural Born Killers unless you were high when you were watching it. And if you're not high, you just don't get it, man. It's just going over your head, the genius of it. Do you think there are people that, say the same about the Mutations?
I don't know. If you're an adult, probably not. I mean, there's a lot of movies and music and like some video game. I can't, in my old age, I can't really get high and play video games unless it's like UFC or something. Because if it's anything with like a premise, like I'll just like, but yeah, it can enhance the experience. I would have a hard time as a 35-year-old man saying that you have to be high to do anything. But I did get like, and before I go forward, Soupy Doopy and Chad Too Bad, I was kidding. I don't discredit your opinion. I got fucking blitzed and went and saw Cloverfield the weekend it came out. That was probably like that and Step Brothers. I remember getting super high and going to see, but Cloverfield, it was just like, that was like one of my favorite experiences ever going to see a movie. Like I went right up to that line where it was like, you're violently too high. And so I was right there and I was like, I came out of the theater thinking it was like a documentary and we'd all just been tricked into thinking it was a movie. No, I mean, I'm sure this is fun. Like he called out the time lapse videos and shit. And like, this would be if I was still in circles like that of getting together and, a group partaking. I'm sure like by the end when you get like the monster and everything, it probably would be kind of fun to like laugh at and whatnot. But
except for the one guy that just can't handle the drugs. and
Yeah.
starts
Starts
crying.
freaking out.
Yeah.
It's turning on me, man.
uh, I as has become evident just from recent episodes, if I am not sober when I watch a movie, I probably won't remember much about it. And then I will get that sentence mixed up with law abiding citizen, or I will forget that I watched Pre Persuasion. So it's, I drink when I do something as drinking, and that just doesn't really do anything to enhance uh, my movie watching experience. So
If I at this age, if I got high and watched Natural Born Killers, I'd probably turn it off a lot faster. Like I just because I'm just like, this is so fucking stupid. I need to be using this time to, and I would like turn on Gordon Ramsay or something. I'm like, this is what I'm talking about.
All right. Well, those were the quotes, Alex. Before we move on to whatever trivia you've scrounged for the mutations, let's place Josh Gad in this thing. It's the Josh Gad Minute.
It's slim pickings unless because I'm not taking Donald Pleasence out of this. So
I think
I get
the first question is: are we doing? Is Josh Gad playing an American, or is Josh Gad putting on a British accent?
well, that's what I was gonna say. He would almost have to be the exchange student. Is that Brian?
Young Elliot Gould.
Yeah, it's Brian because it's not Tony.
Right.
Unless you wanted to maybe do something kooky and make him Lynch, I guess you could do. But
Just put a half mask on his face, and
yeah, I mean, he'd be down for that.
he can do a British accent. So I mean, I don't think
Yeah,
that part is
that's
a
true.
problem.
Also, yeah, it's because again, this movie is a lot of inconsequential parts, and so to make him stick out and to use the Gad to his full potential, it either have to be Brian or Lynch.
I'm going with Lynch because Brian seems so inconsequential. He he arrives, he hooks up with the student, and then he gets knocked out in the third act. So he misses the most exciting part of the movie. So yeah.
That's true. With this way, you get the showdown with Josh Gad and the cast of circus performers.
Yes. All right. Well, that's it. Josh Gad will be your new your new what did they call him? What was his stage name? Was it the Ugly Man? Was it the
Uh,
Ugliest Man?
yeah, it was. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was something like that.
Yeah.
He's not one of them, though.
No. No,
I'm
they
not
tried,
one
but
of you.
all right. So, what trivia do you have for us, Alex?
On our episode, we talk about what was in the box office at the time of release, but as far as figures for the mutations go, not too many on the table as far as budget or box office return. It was directed by Jack Cardiff. This was the last directorial effort he had in the 20 years prior, making such movies as Intent to Kill, Beyond This Place, Young Cassidy, Scent of Mystery. We talk a little bit in the episode. It seemed like there were some people kind of taken aback by Mr. Cardiff taking on a project like this. Written by Edwin Mann and Robert D. Wybach, of course, starring Donald Pleasence, and then the aforementioned Lynch, played by Tom Baker, who a celebrated actor in his own right.
One of the many, many, many Doctor Who's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's much like I have a little bit more insight to Rob Zombie's music. You definitely know Doctor Who better than I do.
Oh, dude, I was, we just dropped the Dead Sentence episode where I tease the Mutations episode, and I blunder and I say that Tom Baker is the Doctor Who that dies at the beginning of the Doctor Who movie that we did on the show, and then, like I said in our recording, that's not true. So I expect Doctor Who fans to turn on me any minute now.
Lost all your cred.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I never claimed to be a Whovian. Uh, and our Doctor Who episode made that very clear. So this guy, this is his last movie. This is like, was it Frankenheimer that did the, the reindeer games?
Yeah,
That was his last one too, right?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, so he capped his illustrious career. He said, "This one's for me."
That's how he went out. He went out in style. Went out in a blaze of glory. Whereas this was just kind of not so much a blaze of glory as it was just kind of this thing that happened, and people were like, "What the fuck is this?" Also known as the Freakmaker, as we call out in the episode, heavily influenced from the 1932 Todd Browning film Freaks. So if you haven't seen this, I recommend kind of doing a double feature because, as we discussed in the episode, it's thought that this is kind of a spiritual remake or homage to Freaks. But the actor Michael Dunn, who in this movie, Julio, played Burns, this was his last movie as he died during production, but he had completed all of his scenes.
Oh,
So,
shit.
yeah, he was only 39 years old. Sad. According to Tom Baker, Lynch, while filming, he and Willie Ingram, who was Popeye, the dude whose eyes like would bug out, named Popeye for his strange ability to make his eyes pop far out of their sockets, used to frequent a bar across the street between shooting scenes. During one such outing, a waitress made it clear through her attitude that she did not approve of Baker, a white man, being friends with Ingram, a black man. So to get back at her, Ingram would make his eyes pop out when she would pass the table, causing her to completely freak out and then go back to normal while he and Baker were pretending nothing happened as she tried to point it out to the other waitresses and patrons.
Good.
Yes, exactly. I love the idea of this fucking bigot waitress having like this fucking mental breakdown because she she thinks she's seeing something that well played. According to Robert D. Weinbach, the writer and producer on this, the role of Professor Noelter was intended for, could you throw out a name that you think this part could go to?
In the 70s, Charles Bronson. Got that sentence in my mind.
Vincent Price.
Oh, okay. Well, those are a little too obvious.
Too on the nose.
Yeah. So were they not paying enough? We saw Vincent Price in The Fly. I mean, he would do
20 years, almost 20 years before this. It was abandoned due to difficulties with Price's agent. Shot over a 6-week period. You think this was a fun movie to shoot on?
It's one of those things that I think that anybody that wasn't wearing a suit, the people that had to be in makeup, I don't know. I mean, unless you really love it, but you always hear those stories of how they just like suffocate because it's so hot and they're doing stunts.
Oscar Isaac talking about his time in Apocalypse.
I mean, that is like Tony, right? Tony gets it the worst. There's really no way of knowing if that's really Tony underneath. Like, how much of that footage of Tony as the plant man is really Tony, and how much is just some poor stuntman that had to suffer through the entire prosthetics work?
I don't know. I'm curious. Yeah, I'm just curious. Like all these 70s horror movies that were made, if the people on set had enough wherewithal to like have fun with them, or if it was just kind of a gig, clock in and clock out type.
Did they know what they had?
Yeah. I mean, there's some movies that there's no way you could have fun on the set of from that time period. The I Spit on Your Graves or Last Houses on the Left, or Last House on the Lefts. I don't know how you would pluralize that. But just with this, it's like, hey, this like plant man is gonna come out and eat you. And in those, it's like, all right, here's this extremely brutal scene that's gonna go on for 20 minutes. Get in the zone.
I mean, remember I asked you back when we were doing the Halloween series, and I was like, do you know how Donald Pleasence felt about that? Because especially the way that his character, that Loomis, becomes more and more deranged and more, over the top as the series progressed. Was that something that was just like a gig? Or he was like, I'm just gonna pay for my grandchildren's tuition, or was he really into it and having a great time? And I think that the answer to that would probably be similar to like when he's doing the Mutations. Is it just like, it's a paycheck, or is he really having a good time?
Yeah, I think obviously this came several years before the original Halloween. I think in that case, he definitely brought the most of his A game he was going to bring to the first one. And then after that, he's just like, all right, let's just have fun with this.
Let's just coast.
Yeah. But see, going back to the Vincent Price thing, he most likely it would have been that mad scientist type thing. So I think that would have completely shifted the tone of the movie. The amusement park in the film is the Battersea Fun Fair, which is located on 9 of the Battersea Park's 37 acres in South London. It operated from 1951 to 1974. Its demise was hastened by the death of 5 juveniles in May of 1972 when the wooden roller coaster named the Big Dipper suffered an accident.
It's like the British action park.
So they didn't even like the owners of this didn't get to Action Point, but thank you. No, it's Action Park. Action Point's the movie. You were right. I apologize for you. But this is similar to that in that, like, by the time the movie came out, it was already shut down. So it's not like the owners could go to it and be like, that's our amusement park there. You got to wonder how like permitting and shooting worked in these days too. Like Jack Cardiff and Loomis. And Loomis isn't at the amusement park, but Jack Cardiff and the whole gang just like guerrilla style going there and Troma style on the streets filming and then get the fuck out. We got to go.
Just Sunday nights when it's closed. That's what they put on their show and just record it real fast.
They just walked there and picked up extras along the way. You want $5? You want to see a lizard woman? Come with me.
So that's it for trivia. There's more of everything except Josh Gad. I don't think we bring Josh Gad up on this one in the episode, but there's more quotes, there's more trivia, and there's a whole discussion about the Mutations. First, we're really positive about it in Contrarians Corner, and then we tell you how we really feel in Real Talk. It is a lot of fun. Our conversation, the movie, well, you can watch it and figure it out, or you can just listen to us talk about it and decide if you want to watch it. So that is on your feed.
Get real high and watch it. Maybe it'll be fun then.
Yes. And then watch it sober. Compare. Let us know. Next, the Patron invasion continues. Jamie Russell is making us watch About a Boy, a movie that is very, very different from the Mutations, just from looking at the posters. No Donald Pleasence. Instead, we get Hugh Grant and the beginning of the Nicholas Hoult.
I mean, it's a movie that both of them have experiments in a way, because it's the beginning of the Nicholas Hoult experiment.
Yes, there you go.
And much like the Mutations, you have to be fucking mad to put that into the world.
Hugh Grant is like, it's alive. All right, but that's coming up next. First, watch the Mutations, listen to the episode. As usual, thank you for paying attention to these ramblings. Look us up on your favorite podcatcher, and we'll talk to you again soon.